that time of the year again. Time to look at what those lads in Detroit have cooked up for the next model year. We've got a new body style, some new accessory goodies, and a number of revisions to some of the components. All of these items are going to have some effect on service procedures, so let's have Hal tell us about them.
Hello, Tech. What brings you out today?
I thought maybe I could impose on you to tell our master technicians about the new cars they're going to be working on.
I'll do better than that, Tech. I just finished checking Danny out on the new model, so let's you and I relax and let him carry the ball. We'll see how smart he is.
Good idea, Hal. Turn it on and let's hear it, Danny.
Okay, Tech. Just remember, though, that the student usually isn't any smarter than his teacher. We will have some new units and procedures this year, but like always, they shouldn't give us much trouble if we understand them. One thing we'll be seeing is a new body style. At first glance, it looks like a two-door hardtop, but when you take a second look, you'll find that it has a B-pillar, so it's called a coupe. This new style is available in the Belvedere and Coronet series, and when you look inside, you'll see that it has no crank for the quarter window. That's because the window doesn't go down. Instead, it swings out, similar to the vent wing in the door. The pivot is at the front of the glass. An over-center latch at the rear holds the glass either closed or fully opened. I'm not too sure of the removal procedure, Hal. Maybe you better give it to me again.
All right, Dan. The glass assembly is retained by 4 screws. To remove the assembly, open the window and remove the 3 screws at the front. The 4th attaching screw is in the rear of the glass frame behind the latch. When the screws are removed, push the top of the glass assembly inward. Then lift the assembly out of the window opening. When you install the assembly, it's a simple case of reversing the removal procedure.
Except for one thing, Hal. There's a little matter of sealing the assembly. Part of the window frame has a foam-type sealer on it. If the sealer was damaged during removal of the window, use a new strip of polyurethane foam around the front and top of the frame. Peel off the paper coating and apply the adhesive side of the strip to the frame.
Thanks, Tech. What's next, Danny?
Well, we have a new tailgate arrangement on the Satellite and Coronet station wagons. It's a combination gate and door. In other words, it operates like a regular tailgate, but it's also hinged on the left side to open like a door. The door hinges on the left side are attached to a concealed hinged pillar, so when the gate latch handle is moved to the right and the 2 latches on the right side are released, the gate becomes a door. When the latch handle is moved to the door position, a link connected to the upper latch remote control arm pulls the arm to release the upper latch. A second link attached to the upper latch mechanism lifts the lower latch control arm, releasing the lower latch. This allows the gate to be swung open like a door. The door hinge pillar on the left side has a gate pivot at the bottom, as in conventional tailgates. There's also a conventional tailgate latch at the left side. Moving the handle to the gate position also operates the upper latch on the right side. However, this operation is through a different linkage, so the lower latch is not affected. In addition, a remote control link pulls on the control lever of the latch at the upper left of the gate, so the gate can be lowered in the conventional way. The lower latch on the right side acts as a hinge pivot when the gate is lowered. On the left side, the gate is hinged to the concealed pillar.
Oh, don't forget the adjustments on the door gate, Danny. They're going to be doubly important this year.
Yeah, you'd better hit the glass run channel adjustments, too.
Okay, men. I'll go over the linkage adjustments first. There are 2 latch linkage adjustments to be made, and as usual, the striker plates are adjustable to provide easy but solid latching. To adjust the latch control linkage, start with the link between the right upper latch and the lower latch. The link itself is simply a rod with a hook on one end and a threaded swivel on the other. Remove the access hole cover panels and close the gate. Make sure both latches are in the fully closed position. Then, disconnect the upper end of the lower latch link. This end has the hook, which goes into the upper latch arm. Raise the upper latch arm until it contacts the latch detent. This will assure full travel of the arm when the latch is operated. While holding the upper latch arm against the detent, pull up lightly on the lower latch link to remove free play. Turn the link in or out of the swivel at the lower end until the hook end lines up with the hole in the upper latch arm. Install the link and retainer.
That's all there is to the door latch adjustment. The gate latch adjustment is just as simple, right, Danny?
Right you are, Hal. This adjustment is also made with the latches in the closed position. Disconnect the hook end of the remote control link and take up the free play between the remote control lever and the remote control arm. Hold enough tension on the link to keep the free play out and turn the link in or out of the adjusting swivel to line up the hook end of the link with the clip hole in the arm. Then reconnect the link. This one adjustment takes care of both the left and right latches.
Let me take over for the glass adjustments, Danny. The lower glass run channels inside the gate are attached at top and bottom. Both attachments are adjustable in or out. Loosen both upper attachments, which are accessible through openings in the side panels. Set the glass in against the weather strip at the top of the gate and tighten the upper attachments. Loosen the lower run attachments through the bottom panel of the gate. Then loosen the 3 upper run channel attaching screws. Run the glass up until it almost reaches the lower attaching screw of the upper run channels. This will position the bottom of the upper channel. Tighten the lower screw and run the glass almost to the top screw of the upper channel. Tighten the top screw and then run the glass down. Don't forget to tighten the middle screw. Swing the tailgate open on the door hinges and tighten the lower run channel bottom attachments. Recheck the glass run alignment to make sure the bottom attachments were not disturbed when the gate was swung open.
If you have to square the glass in the opening, loosen the window regulator attaching screws and set the glass even with a belt line. Now, Danny, what do you know about the tailgate washer-wiper combination?
Well, there isn't anything complicated about it, Tech. There's a reservoir and pump inside the gate and an external filler. The washer is operated by a button on the instrument panel. The wipers are stationary and depend on the movement of the glass to do the wiping. They only contact the glass when the glass is being raised from the fully lowered position. The pressure of the wipers on the glass is adjusted by placing shims between the glass regulator and the regulator support bracket. Adding a shim will increase blade pressure.
If you have to change the wiper blades, be careful not to get any grease on the wiping surfaces. Don't even touch them with your hands. Here's one change that requires hands. Somebody better turn the record.
There are some new electrical items for 1968. Some are concerned with safety and others are convenience items. To begin with, there are 2 new connections at the ignition switch. One of the new connections is found on cars equipped with power windows. The windows will not operate unless the switch is in either the accessory or ignition on position. This keeps the youngsters from operating them when the car is parked. The other connection is for an optional light for the switch itself. This light has a time delay relay in the circuit. When the door is opened, the light comes on. When the door is closed, the light stays on for a short while. Then the relay turns it off. Another safety aid is provided by new side marker lights at front and rear. The front lights have amber lenses, and the rear lights are red. They're connected to the tail light terminal of the headlight switch, so they'll be on whenever the headlights or parking lights are on.
Speaking of headlights, there are 2 new concealed headlight systems. One for the Chrysler 300 and another for the Dodge Charger. How about explaining those, Danny?
I have to confess, Tech, I didn't get around to telling Danny about them yet. The Chrysler 300 system has electrically operated shutters that rotate up into the grille when the lights are turned on. They're driven by a single motor mounted in the center. The motor turns a torsion bar that's connected to the shutters through a crank assembly. The circuit is protected by a circuit breaker behind the instrument panel. If you have to open the shutters manually, slide the V-clip off the crank assembly shaft and onto the torsion bar. Carefully pry the bar away from the shaft and turn the shutters up. Then, lock them in place.
There's a locking clip provided for this purpose on the 300s. On the Charger system, there's a different method of retention, so no locks are needed.
Right, Tech. The Charger shutters are vacuum operated. Each shutter has its own actuator and crank assembly. The two actuators are connected through T-connectors to the vacuum source. There's also a vacuum reserve tank in the circuit. The capacity of the tank is enough to operate the shutters through one complete cycle. Opening the shutters without vacuum is a simple matter. The vacuum hose between the tank and the shutter closing the T-connector has a tracer stripe around it. Disconnect this hose at the T-connector and rotate the shutters open by hand. A magnet inside each actuator holds the doors in the open position. The floor's yours again, Denny. What's new under the hood?
Well, all of our engines have some design changes that give us better performance, but we also have a brand new engine in the lineup. The new engine, available on the Dart GTS and the Barracuda S, has 340 inches displacement from a 4.04 bore and a 3.31 stroke. The compression ratio is 10.5 to 1. It's a real great performer. It has dual points, dual exhaust, hydraulic tappets, and a 4-barrel carburetor with air valve secondary throttle control. This carburetor, along with all the other 4 barrels and the 383 2-barrel, have the new air bleed idle mixture control. The idle mixture screw is located high on the carburetor. The screw has a left-hand thread, so you'll turn it clockwise to get a leaner mixture.
That's the same as on previous models. The only difference is you'll be regulating airflow instead of mixture flow. Incidentally, the idle mixture screws are still in the carburetors, but they're covered up with lead sealer. That sealer is there for a good purpose, so don't remove it. Here's why. The idle fuel supply is flow calibrated on a special flow test console. If you try to adjust these screws, you'll upset the distribution balance and never get it back again. So leave them alone.
Here's a new device for the fuel supply system in the Street Hemi and the 440 engines. It's a combination vapor separator and fuel filter, replacing the conventional filter, and it prevents vapor lock. As you know, when you get one of these big plants under the hood with some accessories on it, the air circulation is cut down somewhat, so there's a tendency toward vapor lock. The vapor separator, which also includes a permanent filter, vents the vapor back to the fuel tank through a return line. The return line is attached to a fitting at the fuel gauge sending unit mounting plate. In most cases, the vapor separator is good for the life of the car, but if the filter should become plugged because of an extra dirty load of gas, replace the whole unit. Be sure to install it with the vapor outlet at the lower end.
Thanks, Al. You forgot to tell me about that one. All cars except the Imperial, Valiant, and Dart will have available a new speed control unit. The Imperial will continue to use the autopilot as an option. The new unit is vacuum operated. The hand controls for the unit are located in the turn signal switch lever. As with the other unit, there is a brake release switch and a throttle control cable. There won't be much to do in the way of service on this new speed control, except for some adjustments.
2 of the adjustments are important to safety, so you better make sure you understand them.
Right, Tech. The brake release switch and the throttle control adjustments are closely related to safety. They're not really complicated once you understand what you're doing. The brake release switch disengages the control unit as soon as the pedal is depressed slightly. The combination electrical and vacuum switch is tripped by a striker pin attached to the brake pedal arm. To adjust the release switch, you first have to energize the brake switch coil. Remove the electrical plug on the servo unit and ground the blue wire. Then, turn the ignition key to accessory position and press the speed set button. With the brake pedal in the released position, there should be 70 to 100 thousandths clearance between the switch arm and the striker pin. To make any correction, move the striker pin in its slotted hole. The throttle control cable adjustment assures full release of the throttle when the control unit is turned off. For correct adjustment, the choke must be fully open and the throttle arm at curb idle. Loosen the cable clamp bolt and hold the override link against the throttle arm. Insert a 1/16 inch pin between the front of the cable hole and the override link pin. Tighten the cable clamp to 45 inch-pounds.
Now that we've heard about the go items, how about the new features on the whoa items, Danny? The drum brakes have some improvements for 68.
Coming right up, Tech. The wheel cylinders will look a little different this year. For one thing, the dust boots are pressed on, and the bleed screws have been enlarged to 5/16 of an inch. The brake anchor pin support has 2 new projections on it. They're piston stops to prevent the pistons from being accidentally forced out of the cylinders when you have the shoes removed. The new brake shoes have metal tabs to ride on the platforms instead of the loops on past models. And there's a special brake support plate lubricant to be used on the tabs and platforms. The combination of the tabs and the lubricant will prevent a lot of brake noise. In addition to quiet brakes, our customers can enjoy the most comfortable inside climate ever available. There's a new automatic temperature control unit that's optional equipment on all Furies, Polaras, Monacos, Chryslers, and Imperials. All the driver has to do is set the temperature control at the temperature that's most comfortable and turn it on. From there on, everything is taken care of automatically by a series of sensing devices. It works this way.
Whoa there, Danny. Time's getting short, and I have a few things to say to all the master technicians. First of all, don't just look at your new service manuals. Read them and study them so you'll know exactly where to look when you run into a snag. And give the reference book for this session a good working over. There's a lot of information in there that we didn't have time to cover today. Here's a few examples. You'll find at least a half-dozen changes in the transmissions for 68. And there's a short description of the special tools for next year. Oh, and Danny, in case you're worried about the auto temp unit, we've got a session coming up soon that covers it very well. Keep up to date with all the revisions and bulletins. It'll make your job just that much easier.